What is going on, y'all? KRC Pinto here. Today, playing some Plus R, joined by a super special guest. I've got a coaching session with Skeletal Minion. Dude, Skeletal, how you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Doing great, man. Really excited for this one. We haven't talked since we did Secret Sauce like a year ago, right? Was that a year ago?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy to think about. Good lord. But yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to this. So I signed up for Frosty Faustings. I'm playing Plus R there, but you know, it's been a while since I practiced this game, and I never really was very good at it anyway. So I figure we do a little coaching session, maybe learn some stuff, get a little bit better, get the level up going. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So we've got our private lobby here. So we just hop in some matches, and what's the agenda?
So pretty much we're just going to cover a couple of things that are really useful, just some core mechanics of the game. Specifically, we're going to be looking at a few different topics regarding the defensive mechanics. Two things that I feel are very important for high-level play in Gear are proper utilization of Faultless defense and also instant blocks. So we're going to be looking at both of those, kind of digging into them and explaining how they work and what they're for. We're also going to be looking at how to properly burst. And when I say how to properly burst, what I mean is how to identify spots that may be better places to burst in a combo to try to keep or try to minimize your burst being baited or possibly options selected by a move mid combo.
Okay, cool. Sweet. All right.
So
I'm actually really looking forward to learning some IB stuff. That's something I don't use at all. Like, I never even think about it. So that'll be.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
It's
you get meter
it's
from
definitely
IB
a strong
in this
mechanic
one, right?
for sure. You do. You
Okay.
do get a little sliver of tension for every successful IB.
Okay. Cool. All right. So should we jump into a game? Is that the move?
Yep.
All
Oh,
right.
I actually just realized I do need to do one thing. I need to remake this room real quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just realized I forgot to change the rounds. That's the classic. I do that on like almost every coaching session. I forget to set the rounds up. But now it should be good. Let me shoot that over to you.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, I'm loading in. Okay.
Please select your character.
Right, it looks
Oh.
like I should have you here in just a second.
Begin waiting.
Alright, so let's go ahead and hop into it.
Oh, I have to accept a challenge. Interesting. I haven't been on
Yeah,
since the
lobbies
lobbies
are-
started doing this.
Yeah, the new lobbies compared to the old, like the early beta lobbies, are tremendously improved. Disconnects, desyncs, all that kind of stuff is very rare. Like, I almost never see it happen these days. And the lobbies are much more stable in general.
Does our map
But they do
matter?
work a little differently. Nah, you can choose any. It's fine.
We're going to Babylon. Let's do it. Okay.
Well, I guess I can go ahead and ask, do you have a preference where we start?
No, we can start wherever.
Alright.
What do you think's gonna
Go
be
ahead.
the most digestible thing to start with, maybe, just to get the ball rolling?
I think probably we could start with IB, touch on that for a bit, and it also kind of ties into, or is a good segue into Faultless, and we can look at that a little bit. Maybe even look at Slashback just a little, just to cover the bases. And then we can just wrap up towards the end with looking at some burst safe, combo routing and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, I guess the first thing I can talk about is the defensive mechanics in Guilty Gear and their importance. So, a lot of people, like, Guilty Gear, and especially Plus R in particular, is usually regarded as a pretty balanced fighting game. You may see the talk about the tiers, or which characters are strong or weak or low tier. you'll see those discussions kind of fluctuate all the time. And it's because in this game, it really is pretty close. Like, it's close, the tiers are close enough that it doesn't really matter. Even characters that some people may perceive as weak have been able to just wreck shop. And a lot of that is due to how the game is generally balanced in terms of its design. One big part of that is that even though the characters are very unique, they each have their own little like kind of gimmick or thing they specialize at. Every character has a situation that could be regarded as a very clearly advantageous situation. Like, everybody has something about them. Every character has something about them that you can use that's really good. Like, everybody has some sort of either really grimy mix-up, or maybe they have some nasty frame traps, or maybe they're really good at zoning. Everybody has some things that are generally considered strong, just in different situations. But I feel that another really big part of that balance is everybody has options. And part of that is that so many options are baked into the system design. Right. So, covering just a couple of these, the first one that we're going to look at is Instant Block. Instant Block, for people that have played other fighting games, they may recognize this as Just Defend, as it's called in like some SNK games, or like in CVS 2. Essentially what Instant Block is, it's just blocking a move just before it hits you. So if you want to just do a neutral jump, and then land and do, let's say, like a far slash.
Okay.
Ooh, let's try it one more time. There you go. You notice that my sprite kind of flashes white?
Right.
Let's do it one more time. That's how you can tell that an instant block was successful. Now, what the game is looking at is that there's about an 8-frame window before the attack connects, and if you block it within that 8-frame window, you're going to get an instant block and your character is going to flash white. Now, each time that you do an instant block, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, you do get a little sliver of meter, which it might be a little hard to demonstrate. I know just standing here we both have got negative penalty, so that may kind of mess with the tension gain, but if you want to try it.
I see a little sliver there.
Yeah, you can tell it's not much. Yeah, my tension pulse may actually be a little too low to really visibly see it. But each time that you instant block, you are getting a little tiny sliver of meter, like 1% or something. I don't know the exact number on it. But the reason why that's important is if you're under heavy pressure, it's good to try to instant block a little bit, if you can. One of those reasons is that it does help you generate some meter, and that meter you can turn around and use on things like Faultless defense, which we'll get into here in a bit. You can also use it on if you have like any metered reversal options or any sort of counterplay like that that can be used to, it basically gives you metered options when you have meter, obviously, and that's a way that you can build up meter even when you're on defense. So that can be very important. But probably the main reason to use instant block is that it actually changes how long you're in block stun.
Okay.
Now, the amount of block stun that you're going to incur depends on how it works in this game. Is you have what are called attack levels, and attacks are going to be level 1 through level 5. You may sometimes hear people refer to attack to some certain like very specific moves as level 6. There actually is no such thing as level 6. Those are just level 5 moves that have specially, like, they're kind of like level 5 plus. They're level 5s technically, but they usually have some unique block stun on them. A good example would be Potemkin 6H, I believe is one. I know the dog bite that Zappa has is another. There's like a few different ones. But essentially, how much block stun you incur depends on the level of the move that you did, the move that you blocked. So if you block, let's say, a level 1 attack, then you're going to incur 9 frames of block stun. Whereas if you block, let's say, and this is for normal block, let's say if you normal block a level 3, that's going to put you in 13 frames of block stun. So you can tell it's just slightly longer at about 4 frames. If you block normal block, a level 5 move, that's going to put you in 18 frames of block stun, which is double how much block stun you're in when blocking a level 1 move. Now, you can kind of eyeball and tell which moves are lower level, just because the lower, like, they're also going to have like less hit stop. So if you want to crouch block for a moment, I can show you, like, these are some low-level attacks, would be like little jabs, stuff like that. A lot of people's 5Ps or 2Ps are usually pretty low level.
Okay.
Now here's one that is much higher level. You can tell it really just kind of almost like pauses the game for a second when it connects because it takes so long. So the thing about instant block is instant block reduces some of that block stun recovery for you. So if you instant block a level 1 move, for example, it's going to reduce your block stun by 2 frames. So instead of you being in block stun for 9 frames, you're going to be in block stun for only 7 frames. And that extra 2 frames might make all the difference in the world for getting out of a bad defensive situation or even turning it around in your favor. A really good common example of this is, let's say, if you instant block a move that's very close, you might be able to make the negative. Like, let's say if they did something that was like a low-level move that's that leaves them slightly plus, or let's say something that's a move that leaves them even. If you instant block, you can throw punish. So, a really good example of this, I'm actually just going to, well, this is a 2 hit, so I don't really have to, but I'm going to throw out a 5H, and I want you to try to instant block the second hit.
Okay.
Actually, before we do that, just keep holding down back, and I'll show, for frame of reference, I'll show, this is what happens when you block a 5H normally. This move is even on block, so it's +0, is how you'll see it listed. And this move has vacuum on the second hit, so it makes it a really nasty tick throw setup for Abba. She can do this right here.
Okay.
And if they want to get cute and try to do, like, let's say that they wisen up to what's going on and they're like, well, I'm just going to throw them when I block the second, like after I block the second hit of the 5H. And I want you to go ahead and try that. Like, after you think you've recovered from the second hit of the 5H, or from blocking the second hit of the 5H, I want you to try to throw.
Okay. Okay.
It has a Gatling into 2H, and the way that the cancel window timing works, you're actually throwing Bull right around the same time that they would recover and be trying to throw you or attack your throw. So it gives her a really, really nasty strike throw mix up off of her 5H. Now, oops, drop it. So you may ask, well, what can I do in this situation? Because obviously if you block one of these, and you're liable to block one of these at some point during some like corner Abba pressure or something like that. So you may be wondering, well, how can I get out of this situation? Or at least how can I make it so I'm not having to like coin flip, strike, or throw? And you do have a few different options here, but the one that I'm going to use for this example is going to be IB. So I want you to try to instant block that second hit and then try to throw me as soon as you've recovered.
So is it going to be regular block the first hit and then like let go of block and then re-block the second hit?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to, in order to input an instant block, you have to let the lever reset to neutral and then press the
Okay.
1 or 4.
Alright, let's do it.
Right?
Whoop.
Whoop. Whoop. I'm going to help you get the timing down for it. Whoop.
Oh, I didn't get the throw, but
that time.
I got the
Yeah, that time
IB.
on space a little far. The reason why, like, I guess the point that I wanted to demonstrate is when you instant block that second hit of that 5H, it's going to actually make that move, instead of it being even on block, since the second hit of that I believe is a level 3, if you IB a level 3 attack, it's going to reduce the block stun by 3 frames. So instead of it being even on block and being a, you know, essentially a perfect tick throw setup, it's going to make it negative and you can throw punish.
Gotcha. Yeah, sorry.
So,
I got that. My execution just sucks. My bad.
it's all good. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No worries. That's what this is for.
But yeah, that's just a good example of, you know, you want to try to, if you're in a defensive situation, be it against Abba or really any character, just playing defense in general, you want to try to pick out good spots where you might IB. And you also want to try to figure out, you know, that IB is essentially either taking something that's slightly plus and it might make it minus, or it might be taking something that's maybe a little minus, and it might be making it minus enough where you have more options. Like instead of, oh, well, I can normal block this attack and then backdash through the other one. If you instant block, it might change that situation to where it's, oh, well, if I instant block this attack, then I can just jump and FD because it gives me enough time to do that. So that's the type of situations that you want to try to pick out. It can be really good for, especially for like dynamic gaps, like if you're, which unfortunately I can't demonstrate this because I can't play that character, but if you're playing a character like Eddie, who has like kind of variable pressure where things are hitting at different times depending on how he times the shadow and himself, it can be good to try to take those little gaps and try to turn them into big enough gaps that you can do something. So that's one of the biggest important, like most important uses of IB, is just giving you extra time to do stuff. Another thing that you could do that would be an example is you might be able to instant block something, like you might be able to instant block a frame trap and it's no longer a frame trap, like it makes it so you could jump away, or you might be even able to counterattack, like your own like 5P or something if you have a fast one. There are situations like that that are going to pop up anytime somebody's blocking, and on defense you want to try to identify and make use of those situations to make those gaps large enough where you can do something. In addition to, you also want to try to keep in mind to try to IB, like, you don't have to IB every single hit. I mean, obviously, if you can, that's ideal, but, you know, you want to try to IB more than the, I guess, just quote-unquote, like, bare minimum necessary to get out of pressure and stuff, just because it gives you meter. And a lot of stuff can be IB pretty easily, since the window's kind of large at 8 frames. But yeah, I would say that's the main things to keep in mind about IB, is you essentially use IB when you want more time. Now, some people that I've had coaching sessions where I've discussed these types of things with other players in the past, and a theory that I kind of use to, or a couple of terms that I kind of use to make this more digestible, is to consider it in terms of space versus time, right? So you want IB when you want time, but when you want space, that's going to be when you need Faultless Defend, and that's going to be what we're looking into next. But I do want to ask, were there any questions that you had about IBs, or anything, well, I guess just do you have any questions at this point?
When you're going for IBs, right? So is this like, just because of the way the mechanic works, is this a mechanic where you kind of have to like know what the other character does to be able to use it properly? Like, it doesn't seem like something you could just do. Like necessarily like with FD, right? Like, I know if I'm in a string and I want space, I can just FD, right? But like the nature of IB seems like you really have to have some like in-depth knowledge on what the other character can do. Is that a correct read on that?
So the answer to that is kind of yes, kind of no. So one thing that's really nice about IB is that you can, like, a good tip is to try to time it a little on the earlier side. Like, if you're not sure of the timing of the next thing that they're going to do, try to input it a little early, because that way, even if you miss the timing, you'll still block it, because at that point you're already holding back.
Oh, duh, that makes sense.
That can give you, that can give you a little bit safer way to input them. There is going to be some risk if obviously if you release the lever to neutral and then they hit you, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So for that reason, it can be good to know certain things. Like, one thing that I would say is actually pretty important to know is to kind of get a feel for the timing of the Gatlings. You'll notice that some characters' Gatlings are just inherently, just generally kind of slower. Like, if you look at a block string from, let's say, Testament, and let's say that you do, like, a 2K close slash 2D or something. You just do one of his block strings. You'll notice that the timing is going to go like ching, 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 like it's kind of slow.
Right.
As far as the kind of like distance or like the timing between the hits. But then if you play a character that has really fast Gatlings, somebody like Jam, when Jam goes up to you and does a block string, it's like ching 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 ching. It's like a lot faster. The hits are less spaced out because the moves themselves are just quicker.
Right.
So it can be a good idea to get a feel for, if a character has kind of like faster block strings or gatlings versus characters who generally have larger gaps. Just kind of like having an idea of what they can do or what they might try can definitely help. But you don't have to have like their entire like gatling table memorized or anything like that. So it's kind of a little bit yes, a little bit no.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I wasn't considering that you could IB and just continue to hold block from there. I was thinking of it as like a risk every time, but obviously you can like just go early on it and then just be blocking from there, and that's probably fine.
What I would say could be a good way to look at it is to kind of think of it backwards. So instead of thinking it like, I need to tap down back just before the move hits, try to look at it in terms of, I need to keep holding back or down back, but occasionally, just slightly before the IB window, I need to release the lever to neutral. If you look at it from that perspective, I find that can make it a little easier to digest as well.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Pretty sure there's some quote that I remember reading sometime about playing music and about how you have to play the notes and not the rest. This is one of those times where you can look at this the other way around and think of it as you want to play the rests and just keep hammering on the notes.
Okay. I like that. All right, let's move on to FD.
Okay, so in terms of time versus space, again, IB is what you need. That's what you want to do when you need more time to do things. When you need more space to do things, that's what FD is going to be for. Oh, actually, there is one other detail I want to mention about instant block before I forget. Keep in mind that the amount of block stun that is shaved off when you IB something is different in the air than when you're on the ground. So, just to give a couple of quick examples, if you normal block a level 1 move, it's going to put you in 9 frames of block stun. If you instant block it, it's going to have 2 less frames, so you'd be in 7 frames of block stun. If you air instant block it, it's going to remove 6 frames, which is, a lot.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the thing to keep in mind is when you IB in the air, it shaves off way more block stun than when you're on the ground for any level of attack. So it's good to keep that in mind when you're like IBing in air to air, trying to go for a throw, like an air throw or stuff like that. You want to keep in mind that it's not going to be, the block stun is going to be altered a little bit differently compared to when you're on the ground. But back to the topic of Faultless. So for this, I'm just going to run on Gold Burst to get some meter. Now, I'm probably going to have to run at you like this just to try to keep my tension pulse from tipping too low. But basically, you can see once I've got a little meter, if you want to do a Faultless, you just hold back, like hold 4 and 2 non-D attack buttons, except for slash and heavy. So you could do like back and punch and kick, or back and kick and slash, or back and punch and slash. You can see when I hold that, it causes my tension to drain at a pretty fast pace, and it makes that green bubble appear around me. If I were to block an attack at that point, I will do what's called a Faultless Defend. Now, Faultless Defend also affects the amount of time that you're in block stun, but it actually adds a slight amount of block stun based on the move's attack level. So, looking at that same example, if I were to FD something that is a level 1 move, it's going to add 1 additional frame of block stun. Whereas if I were to FD a level 5 move, it's going to add 4 additional frames of block stun. It also is slightly different in the air. If you air FD, a level 1 attack, it's going to add 2 frames of block stun. If you air FD a level 5 attack, it's still only going to add 4. It kind of curves a little bit for air FD. But the important thing to know, and the reason why you want to use FD, has a few different uses. One is, and this is a pretty obvious one, it increases pushback when you block things. So I want you to just run up and, Yeah, if you want to just do a...
Oh, my bad.
Let's just look at close slash. Yeah. Whoop. Let's just do a close slash. I'm just gonna block
okay.
it. So you can see how far back I got pushed, right around to about the tip of the pool cue. Now I want you to jump, and then when you land, go ahead and do another close slash. You can see it pushed me a lot farther away.
Right.
Now, that's what I mean when I say FD is what you want when you need space. You can use that to create physical space between yourself and the aggressor. The thing that is really nice about that is, and probably the thing that it's best for, well, a couple of the things that it's best for. One is it can help you create enough space to where you can get out of the corner. If you're in the corner, it can help push people away from you, since you can't be pushed back any further at that point. It will instead push them back. That can be good to create enough space, just physical distance-wise, where you can like super jump and then air dash over them or something to try to escape. But another thing that's really nice about it is if they're doing like a Gatling and they're just kind of autopiloting it, if you use FD smartly, you can actually sometimes create situations where you can force a whiff, because they'll just kind of, if they're not careful with it, then they'll just kind of like autopilot into the rest of the string. But if you're pushed out far enough where the last hit of that whiffs, then you can just, you know, definitely free whiff punish on it.
Right.
I think that as far as, like, just as an aside, I think that's one thing that's also worth keeping in mind is the visual indicators for these mechanics. Because if you're on offense and you see your opponent faultlessing, remember it's going to have that green circle, that green kind of bubble.
Right.
That's a good kind of like tip off from the game. It's like, hey, be careful. They might be trying to, you know, they're trying to push you out. Same thing with IB. You can actually watch for that white flash, and you can kind of tell if somebody's trying to IB to get out of your stuff, and you can even tell where they're trying to do it. So it's good to kind of like train yourself to, you know, to just be able to kind of pick out when people use those things. But as far as some of the other stuff that you can do with Faultless, another very, very, very important use for it is it lets you air block a lot of things that are normally air unblockable. In Plus R, the vast majority of grounded moves, whether they be normals, specials, whatever, just most attacks that are standing in this game cannot be blocked in the air with normal block. So if I were to jump in and you do, let's say, a 6P or something, you can see I was holding back just then and I just got hit. But let's try that with Faultless. I think it ran out right as I jumped it, yeah. Oh, time up. Well, we can start from the top on this round. Alright, so let me get a little attention. There we go. So I'm just going to jump at you and I want you to 6P again. You can see I was able to air block it because I was faultlessing.
Right.
That works not just when you're jumping in, but very crucially important, that also works when you're jumping away. There's a technique in this game that people call FD jump, which is basically where you jump and immediately cancel it into a faultless. Like this.
Right.
Let's see. Yeah. If you do it correctly, then you're going to, you know, when you do your jump, you're going to have a few frames of pre-jump where you're technically grounded, but you're no longer considered actually standing. Well, I guess technically, yeah, you would be considered standing. You're no longer considered throwable. Like, you're no longer considered standing for, like, throws. It makes you throw and roll.
Right.
So let's say if you're like being pressured by an opponent in the corner, if you want to swap sides with me, I might be able to demo this a little better. And let me get my Maroha gauge up. Alright, so if you just want to just do some Gatlings, do some stuff. So I can jump here and just immediately input the Faultless. And oops, I ran out. But you get the idea.
Yeah.
If you had Gatlinged into something that is tall enough that it might hit me on the way up, because I'm already FDing, I'm still going to, you know, I'm still going to be safe. Now, depending on the move that I air FD on my rising jump, it might make it so I don't get out of pressure. Like, well, I can demo with this next round. So, like, some moves when you block them in the air, Like this one, you don't even have to FD. You can just hold it back. Just hold it back when you see me start to do the flip kick.
Oh, okay.
Oop, a little later. There we go. You can see that one. It's still like you air block it, but it kind of like plummets you back to where you were.
Right.
You can kind of do that same thing with air FD. So it lets you kind of like make jumping away safe, so you don't have to worry about getting tagged with like some sort of rising attack and then, or some kind of attack while you're like rising in your jump, and then getting reset to a combo. It makes it so that way you can block even if something does still clip you while you're while they're standing. There's also another way to do this that is called a one-frame jump. A one-frame jump is kind of like, it's basically just a really well executed FD jump is essentially what it is. It's where if you cancel the very last frame of your pre-jump into a faultless defend, you'll see what happened just then where I just did a neutral jump straight up, even though I jumped back. And if you do that just right, the main difference between that and a regular FD jump, there's a couple of things that are nice about it. One is it gives you the fastest possible FD because you're doing it at the fastest possible time.
Okay.
Two is since you're canceling that last frame of your pre-jump animation into the FD animation, it actually, for a lot of characters, it will shrink your hurt box a little bit, and that can help you get out of some block spring situations or some defensive situations that you literally couldn't if you were just doing a regular FD jump. Some really good examples of this, there's like a lot of times eddy pressure can do this where you might have gaps that are just big enough for you to jump, but then if you don't do like a well executed one frame jump, you might get clipped by like Mawaru or something on the way up as you're still going. So that can be a good thing to keep in mind, is to try to get the execution for that down. But even if you don't, it's still fine. It's better to just try to, like early on especially, it's best to focus on just try to get into the habit of FDing whenever you need to leave the ground like that. Like if you're jumping out of defense or out of pressure or something like that.
Okay.
There is one other use for FD, and this is a pretty obvious one, or well, a couple more uses that are pretty obvious. One is that they prevent chip damage, so if you're about to get chipped out, if you're down to the magic pixel, make sure that you don't get chipped by a special move or super. Chip damage does exist in Plus R, so that will kill you if you don't FD when you're very low in life. The other thing is that it also prevents your guard gauge from being increased. That can be very, very important when fighting some characters, such as Abba, or really any character that can effectively crank up their opponent's guard gauge. Can be a good way to kind of trade off your meter. It's like you save your guard gauge at the expense of your meter, and meter is something that's a lot easier to get back. If your guard gauge goes up, then that's not going to get reset until a little bit of time has passed.
Right.
Or until you actually get a hit, turn the situation around, or until they reset into a combo or something. And if your guard gauge is up and they get the hit, the life you lose isn't coming back. So it's always better to spend the meter to prevent that if you can. I should clarify and say, it's not that you should always spin the meter, it's something you should always consider if your guard gauge is getting, if it looks like it's getting kind of high, especially if it's up to a point where it's flashing already, like that's when it's like, okay, I need to kind of, burn some tension and keep this from getting out of hand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that would be the main things I would say on FD. I can't think of anything else that may have left off on it.
Okay.
One thing that I can say as well is, I guess we could, if you want, we can touch on flashbacks a little bit. I won't go super in-depth for those. I'll just kind of touch on them and what they can do.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
So, flashbacks are something that some of you may have seen, like in videos, where you'll see a kind of a yellow shield will kind of flash out of the opponent or out of the character that does the flashback. Like, I'm gonna see if I can try. Let me see what his 5P looks like.
5P?
Like, just do a 5P. Yeah, I'm trying to think. What we can do, let me get a little meter. I'm going to jump, and as soon as I land, I want you to 5P.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can do one for you.
Time up.
Oop. Ah, ran out.
Duel. Let's rock.
Alright, here, let me just burst a little bit, and let's try it one more time. Oop.
There
There
it
it
is.
is. So that's what a slashback looks like. Slashback is kind of like a parry in other fighting games. It lets you recover from block stun much faster. It actually is going to reduce the total amount of block stun that you're in by a large amount. I don't remember the exact frame data. I think it's like going to depend on a few different things, but I want to say it's going to reduce it for like a standing attack. I want to say it takes it down to like 3 frames or something like that. And I mean total. Like, you're only in block stun for 3 frames if you execute a slashback in that situation. But yeah, so this definitely can give you much more time to do stuff. If you slashback something, usually that's almost always going to be a guaranteed punish, where like you definitely have enough time, or you will almost definitely have enough time to swing back before they can do something else after a successful slashback. At the very least, even if they're doing like a Gatling or something where you may not have enough time for that, it should give you a lot better options in terms of utilizing some of those defensive options that we looked at, like jump FD or backdash to get away, hitting a button to counter poke or counter throw. Just gives you more time to do those. There's also a couple of other things that are nice about slashback. One is they do prevent chip damage, so it can be good for moves that hit a lot. Once you slash back a single hit, then successive slashbacks temporarily get easier to do. Like the input window doubles.
Okay.
And then I know in Plus R they changed it again, where it's going to make it so, I think after 2 successful like slashbacks back together, it goes up to like 8 frames or something. Basically, the first slashback is going to be the hardest because it's about a 2-frame window, and I think the second one is going to be 4, and the third one onward is going to be 8 for a short period. Which I may have the exact numbers on that incorrect. I can't remember it off the top, but essentially that's going to be what slashback is for. Is it can be really good to use as a parry. It also prevents chip damage. So multi-hitting moves, you don't have to worry about the chip damage from those. It also is going to increase your tension pulse, which it does require a tiny sliver of meter to execute. I think just to input a slashback, it takes like 1 or 2% meter or something.
Okay.
But if you succeed with the slashback, then you get a boost to your tension pulse, which is effectively a multiplier of how quickly you gain meter. You can actually observe tension pulse. It's shown on the HUD. You see how my tension bar is kind of like flashing, or it's kind of like pulsing between dark and light? So it's like green, dark green, light green, dark green,
Yeah.
and so on. That little pulse is your tension pulse. So the faster you see that flash, and you can see now it's kind of going up and going faster because I'm building up more just running.
Right.
As it goes up, that's going to make anything that I do that gives me tension is going to have a better multiplier put on it from the tension pulse. So you can gain meter very easily if your tension pulse is up. And slashback gives you a pretty big boost to your tension pulse. So if you use slashback in really clutch moments, it can really help you turn the tide of a fight for sure. A couple of downsides about slashback, or just some things to note about slashback. One is you cannot do a slashback on wake up for about the first, I want to say it's like 10 frames after you wake up. They just wanted to prevent, I'm pretty sure that the developers just wanted to prevent like option select, or not option select, but they wanted to prevent like wake up parry situation from third strike, where meaties kind of like lose some of their, they're not quite as scary because parry is always an option. And with this being a very Oki heavy game, they decided that they didn't want that, so they just hard coded it. You cannot parry for the first 10 frames after you wake up. Another thing that is important to note about slashback is what happens if you attempt to slashback and you fail, which is possible because it's only a 2-frame window to hit it. If you attempt to slash back and fail, it literally disables your ability to block for about 30 frames, which means the next thing they do, if they're still doing stuff, is almost assuredly going to hit you. So it is definitely a high risk, high reward option in terms of the defensive mechanics in this game. But yeah, that would be the... I think that covers everything for slashback.
Okay. Yeah, that's I feel like I'd be really wary of using that. Like I don't know if I would go for that at the moment. Like how do you really pick your moment when you're doing that? Like would you do it on like something that's incoming that you can see incoming, or do you do it like if you were going for it, would you go for it like in a string where you know there's a good spot? Like what's the thought process there?
I would say it can definitely be, like, usually how I try to use slashback is if something is coming that I just really feel confident in knowing the timing of, like if they do something, like one thing that I slash back sometimes when I see it, depending on my positioning, is May does the whale, for example, the full screen whale. If she does the whale super and I slash back it, normally it's going to push you back pretty far. You may not get like a super ideal punish. But if you slash back it, you can run in while she's still posing and just clobber her. You can do similar stuff against single hit supers like that, if you could just get the timing down for when it hits after the super flash. You can even do this with the Goku Muroha activation as well. That actually is a very strong option against Goku. But, remember, it's risky. It's definitely the high risk, high reward mechanic of the game. So you want to be very careful about where you choose your slashback spots. I would say another good place to kind of do them is just if they're doing like a similar Gatling, especially if they're not being very like varied with their Gatlings, if they're just kind of doing one or two over and over. They do the first two hits, you block it, and then you know what the next hit is that's coming, and you know like right when it's going to connect with your character. That might be a good chance to slash back. It also might be better to slash back moves that are higher level, just because since it works differently from instant block, where instant block is going to remove, it's going to reduce your block stun by a few frames depending on the level, and it scales up a little bit, so higher level moves reduce your block stun by more. For slashback, it doesn't really work like that. For slashback, it's just going to reduce your block stun to that set value, like 3 frames or whatever it is, depending on the slashback. If you're slashback in the air or whatever, it's going to be a little different. But when you slashback something on the ground and it sets your block stun down to 3 frames, if they did a move that's really high level, they're going to have a lot longer recovery than if you slashback something like a jab. So it may be, I guess what I'm saying is, it may be worth it to kind of try to slash back higher level moves, just because the timing might be a little easier. And the reward that you get off of it, you're going to be able to really maximize having that reduced block stun off of moves where they just have longer recovery animation.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, at this point, one thing that I wanted to go over is one question that I get often is about burst safety. Because this is a game where everyone has a burst, which, for anyone unfamiliar with burst, it's basically just a combo breaker. You both start with one at the start of the round. Once it's used, your burst gauge will slowly fill up over time, and as you're blocking, and as it gets closer to the end of the round, and a few other things change the rate that it builds up at. But essentially, the best way to think of it is, eventually, it builds up over time, and eventually you can get another one if it's not too close to the end of the match. As far as the way that bursts work, there's 2 types of bursts. So you've got your blue burst, which is your offensive burst, and then you've got gold burst, or you've got blue burst, which is your defensive burst, and then you've got gold burst, which is your offensive burst. Offensive burst, if you land it, or if you do one, you float up into the air, you have the gold flash. If it hits your opponent, it's gonna give you 100% tension, so it completely fills your tension gauge. This can be a good option for if you want to use your burst aggressively. Like you could run into your opponent, make them think you're going to throw, and then just do it like that. Anti-air gold burst can also be or anti-airing someone with Gold Burst can also be a legit option. It can be a good way to anti-air people that are going at you like an instant air dash, or some sort of like high jump in. You'll notice after a Gold Burst, you'll always get that first like 20-ish, however much % of your tension gauge back. Like you'll notice it started with that B like almost completely filled. That's just how Gold Burst works, is it's never going to cost you your entire gauge.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yep. For the other important thing to note about Gold Burst is how it can be punished. So Gold Bursts are completely strike and roll. They do have landing recovery. I want to say it's about like 3 frames. But you can't punish them with any strikes, even on the way down. So just make sure to try to go for a throw punish if your opponent does a Gold Burst. What I like to do is, like, if I bait one and block it, I'll just micro dash in and then go for a throw. Oh yeah, that's actually one other thing that I should mention that is super important about FD. Almost forgot. One other thing that's super nice about Faultless Defend is it halts your momentum. So, you know, normally when you dash at someone, like if you run at the other character, you're going to kind of slide to a stop. And when you do that that little slide, you're vulnerable during that time. If you cancel that into an FD, it's not only going to make you safe because, you know, at that point you're officially blocking compared to going through the recovery of the little skid animation is what I see a lot of people call it. You could actually also cut that momentum from that dash completely, like you can just stop on a dime if you FD. So this can be really good for tick throw setups, where, like, let's say that you've got your opponent in the corner, you're playing your rushdown character. Pinto, if you will, go ahead and block for me for a sec.
Yep.
Alright, let's say that your opponent's applying some pressure, and then you can just, or let's say that you're applying some pressure, you can just drop your pressure, run in for a strike throw, and because of that FD, you can really just stop on a dime. And that makes characters that have really fast runs and characters who get a lot of damage off their throw, it makes them very scary, and that's something that Apple's kind of known for. Her strike throw game is really nasty for that reason. But anyway, so going back to bursts, let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've missed that's like super important about Gold Burst. I think that's the main things, is that's probably the best ways to use it, is like anti-air, or if you want to just run in and like apply offense, you want to try to like bait a throw or something, you could run in and do it. But even then, generally you'll see a lot of players in this game will save their burst for a blue burst. Blue burst is going to be the defensive option. It looks identical to a gold burst, except the flash is blue. Blue bursts work a little differently in how much of your burst gauge they use. For a blue burst to get you that little like 20% or whatever of your gauge back, it has to actually connect with the opponent. If the burst whiffs, for example, then it costs the entire burst gauge. And that can literally be, depending on when you burst, like that might be the difference between you get another burst near the end of the round versus you lose because you didn't have one yet.
Right.
So burst management is something that can be really important. It's also worth noting that burst is the only mechanic that carries over between rounds. So you'll notice at the start of every round, you'll both start with 0% tension, unless your opponent taunted you after the last round. But typically you'll always start with 0% tension. You'll always start with like Abba always starts with 3 blood packs, Johnny always starts with 8 coins, characters with special resources, you know, those are always going to reset after every round, or at the start of every round. Burst is the one that is not like that. So if you burst, and let's say you went around and you have the first couple of letters filled up in your burst gauge at the start of the next round, that's exactly where it will start off. So proper burst management is interesting because it's a resource that you have to manage throughout the match instead of on a single round basis. So keep that in mind as well. But going back to Blue Burst, I think with Blue Burst, the nice thing about Blue Burst is you can do it while you're being hit. So obviously you can use this combo breaker to get you out of combos. The thing is that they have a little bit of startup time, and because of how stuff kind of works in this game, people if you're playing against a character, or if you're playing against a player who is familiar with like places where you might try to burst, it's really easy to set up like burst baits in this game, where you can make them burst and then jump up and block it, or do something to make it whiff, or you can do something that armors it, or something like that, and then you just get a punish. So
Time up.
we're going to be looking at, here in a moment, we're going to be looking at some ways to kind of avoid those situations, or how to try to like defend against those situations as best you can. But some things that I do want to note about Blue Burst, already covered how much of your burst gauge it costs. It doesn't have any effect on your tension, so you don't get any tension if it hits or anything like that. You just, blow your opponent back.
Right.
One thing that is very important about Blue Burst compared to Gold Burst is these are also strike and throw and roll on the way up, or they're strike and roll on the way up. They are actually vulnerable on their way down, so to both strikes and throws. So if you block a Blue Burst, you can definitely get a punish as they're descending. If you want to try to get a standing punish, you could even go for that, because there's about 3 frames of recovery once they land. So you can do that if you want to time it. Otherwise, you could just throw out any button that will catch them while they're descending and free combo. Let's see, trying to think if there's anything else that's like important as far as like the distinction between the two. But I guess we can go ahead and look at just a couple of examples of bursting, and a couple of examples of like some burst baits, or like some good examples of like what not to do in terms of bursting.
Okay.
So first, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a simple string. I want you to crouch block, and I'm going to do, and then after the second hit of the 2H, I want you to go ahead and burst.
Okay.
Time up.
Right, so I'm gonna jump first for timing, and then I'm just gonna land, close slash, 2H, that's gonna hit twice, then go ahead and burst.
Okay.
So you can see that's the situation. If I think that my opponent might try to burst after the 2H, I can just go into Danzai, and it's just gonna armor their burst and blow it up. Another example would be, like, that would be an example of some characters can insert moves in their combos that make bursts, like, not good to do.
Right.
Abba can do that with Danzai, because she can just add it into the combo. Like, for Abba, with a little bit of training, you can honestly kind of react to the burst and just do it. It won't be possible every time, just depending on the timing that they input the burst, but there's a lot of times where I've been playing and somebody's been like, wow, that was a sick read, and it's like, I just reacted to them doing it. Like, I'm not that good. But yeah, so you definitely want to watch for, if you're playing against an opponent who has moves that armor, or moves that can make the burst whiff. Like, some characters have low profile options. If I'm playing as Abba, and let's say that I start to do a combo that starts with like a far slash, right? And I know you don't have burst, so I can't really show it right here, but let's say that you get hit by the second hit of my far slash, and at that point you think, oh crap, that's a combo starter, let me burst. If I can tell that you're going to burst there, like if I kind of get a read for it, I can hit the far slash, and then chain into 2D. And at that distance, that would just make your burst whiff.
It's kind of the same idea as like Eno's doing Stroke the Big Tree underneath.
Yep. Eno can do it with Stroke the Big Tree, Venom can do it with his 2D. I'll actually give you a good example. What is something that you could chain into 2D? Like, what's just a regular Gatling that he could Gatling into 2D from?
It's just like a 5K, 2K, something like that.
So like 5K 2D?
Yeah, just like there to there. Yeah.
Yep. I want you to neutral jump, and when you come down, do 5K 2D.
Okay.
Oh, I think I was a little too close. But yeah, if you're, which I can't show you now because no infinite burst, oh no. But you get the idea. Like, any characters that have stuff where they can just low profile it, like, you may have to be at a little bit of distance to make sure you're far away enough. But like,
Yeah.
Venom's 2D is a good example because he's low enough to the floor, the burst can just go over him if it's a little bit in front of him. So that's another thing to keep in mind too, is think of points where they might be able to cancel into moves like that. So other characters that can do some stuff like that, I'm pretty sure Soul can 2D underburst. I think Axel might be able to do it with like 2K. I know he's low profile enough, I just don't know if the frame data would work out timing wise, but essentially you just want to keep that type of scenario in mind. You don't want to burst at a place where they might potentially do something that low profiles it, because then they're probably going to punish you, and even worse, because your burst whiffed, you're going to lose your entire burst gauge, because you lose all of it on the whiff blue burst.
Right.
So there's that to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind as well is places where people can jump. The reason for this is a lot of times, like, you can just jump cancel something and jump and block a burst. So I'll give you a good example. I'm just going to do that same thing where I do neutral jump, then I'm going to do a close slash and chain it into a 2H. And I want you to burst after the second hit of the 2H.
Okay.
And then you can just jump up, block it, free punish when you land. Now, the reason why I show those things is I feel like those are some of the more common scenarios that people are, like, some of the more common ways that people are going to try to bait your burst. They'll either do things in the combo that are jump cancelable, which lets them, if their reaction is on point, they can just jump up and block it. And then, jumping and blocking a burst is a really good way to get a really solid punish, because you land pretty quickly, whereas they're just kind of like drift down. And when they drift down like that, you'll typically land before they do, and you can get something. So jump and blocking burst can be a good way to bait them, and in order to do those, you got to be able to jump, right? So if you're in a defensive situation, try to keep in mind the places where an opponent might try to jump, and that's going to be places where you do not want to burst. You also kind of want to be careful with anything that has a cancel for it. So let's say that we do that same situation, which we'll probably have to. Here, I may have to beat you up a little bit to help your burst gauge come back sooner.
No worries.
All right, so just let me hit you. All right, we'll just do B&B. Try to jack up the hits, because higher hits and combos make you come back faster. You can see now you're getting like a giant chunk per hit. Almost. Anyway. Okay, so let's get to about, maybe let's do mid-screen for this one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do bar slash, and I'm going to go into 2H. And for this one, I want you to try to burst after the first hit of the 2H. So you're going to block close slash once, you're going to block 2H, one hit, and then hit burst.
Okay.
I was able to cancel that with an FRC and immediately block. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind, is if they have something that they can FRC, be very careful, because if they do FRC it, a lot of times they can like OS and like hold back when they're inputting the FRC, and that way it's like, well, if you didn't burst, they recover instantly on the FRC, so they can just do whatever they were going to do anyway. If you did burst, then they're going to block it, and then they're going to probably, it's like then you just reset their combo for them, so you'll take more damage, and you lost one of your best defensive tools, at least temporarily. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is try to not burst during things that they can FRC. You don't want them to FRC and then punish, like block and punish the burst, or FRC and evade and punish the burst. We already talked about armor, we already talked about jump cancel. Basically, the things that you want to not do, the general rule of thumb is try to not burst when they have options that let them do other things.
Right.
Like, if they're doing a ground block string or something, then if it's got jump cancelable normals in it, which in plus R, like many moves in this game are jump cancelable on block. If they are doing something like that, you may want to be careful, because they could cancel that into a jump, and that gives them, that lets them block it and punish it. You don't want to try to burst when they're at a point if they might throw out something that's going to armor it. Just because we saw, you can, like if you're ABBA, you can draw Banzai. If you see a burst coming, and just armor it and get a big punish. And then you also want to be careful of stuff that's going to like kind of OS it, things that can make it whiff. Especially if people can do it like mid combo and like continue the combo either way, where it's like a true OS, you got to be really careful for those. So it may sound like there's a lot of places where it's generally bad to burst, and I'll be honest, in many cases it's true. There's a lot of times when people burst because it is going to be a little bit of a risky mechanic. You want to try to burst when they're doing something that they cannot cancel. That way, it kind of makes it so they, if they really wanted to bait your burst in that spot, they would have to drop the combo and do like a hard read or something. And at that point, it's really more risky for them because if you don't burst, they just ended their combo early. They just let you out. So, as far as as far as like a good example, one thing that can be a good example for maybe a place that's a good place to burst is during a special move that cannot be canceled. A good example of this would be like anytime somebody's doing something that is, that is a special move. Typically, those are not going to have any sort of cancel options built in. And you can't cancel most of them unless they have an FRC point or some sort of special like feint gimmick or something. Most of them you're not going to be able to cancel once you've already input it, so you're just kind of locked in. Maybe a good example for ABBA, let's see if I do... Alright, so I'm going to do a 2H, and then I'm just going to combo into butt as if I had just landed 2H. I want you to burst after the second hit of the 2H. So I'm going to do the same thing as before for timing. I'm just going to neutral jump, close slash, block after the second hit of the 2H. So, or burst after the second hit of the 2H. So, you can tell because I had already input the butt, at that point, once you burst, it was like, well, like, it's guaranteed that I'm going to get hit because I can't cancel that in any way. You do want to be careful for situations if you're bursting after one of those types of moves has been blocked, because of course if they have 50 meter, at that point they can RC it. But truth be told, that's kind of expensive. 50 meter, especially depending on the character, 50 meter can be a lot in this game, and it might not be worth it if it's a situation where it's like, well, I might be able to like RC this blocked move and punish the burst or do something, versus, well, I got hit with a burst anyway and now I'm just down 50 meter. But that's generally a good rule of thumb, is try to burst during things that they cannot cancel, that are going to interact. You don't want to burst and have them do something that makes, that whiffs, because you want to keep in mind, when you do either type of burst, you're going to rise up in the air slightly, so it is going to change where you actually physically are.
Right.
That's why, like, if you've ever seen stuff like where ABBA's doing a combo in the corner with, like, butt loops or something, which I'm going to demo here in a second. So let's say let's say that I get into Goku Maruha mode, which I'm going to go ahead and do here. And let's say that I get this combo going. I want you to try to burst at any point in this combo. Whoop. Hold on. Let me start that again. You can go ahead and burst. There you go.
Yeah.
That's how, like, some people have noted that, like, a lot of ABBA stuff, for example, in the corner is burst safe, is because she can kind of make it burst safe by putting them up high enough that if they burst, it's just going to whiff over her head.
That makes sense. Yeah, then you're just kind of stuck falling for a while.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and at that point, it's big punish. You don't want people to call you out for doing a Domi burst on stream, so don't burst high up in the air.
Heard that.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that would be probably, like, I guess now would probably be a good time to recap if there's any questions you had or anything else you'd like to touch on before we wrap it up.
No, I don't think I have any questions. That was all pretty clearly laid out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have any at all. I guess I can open up to to chat now. I know if chat, I've been neglecting you, but if anyone has been paying attention and has questions, give it
Hello, chat.
give it a minute and see if anyone asks anything in there. But no, I think a lot of that made sense. Now actually putting it into practice is a whole different ball game, obviously. But
Right.
yeah, I think I mean most of it's pretty applicable off rip, right? Like trying to go for IBs in a semi-safe way, like going for them beforehand, or looking for a gap. That seems like something I can try and focus on doing like one session. I already use FD fairly regularly. Maybe a little too much though. I feel like I do spend some tension on it when I'm doing it. Someone asked any good ways to practice IBing. Probably in a training mode setting, I would assume.
So honestly, one thing that is absolutely fantastic for the replay takeover mode, which just to give you an FYI, I'm gonna step away from my comp for a second. But one thing that is absolutely fantastic for the replay takeover mode is you can use that feature to just jump in at any point in an actual match that you've played with someone.
Right.
And then you're going to be able to just, like, you don't have to figure out what buttons they're pressing or the timing for, like, how they're inputting, like, block strings or gatlings or whatever it is that they're doing. You can just jump into a real situation and immediately start trying to ID.
That makes sense.
I would say, like, you also want to try to work it into your actual matches. Like, one thing that I tell people, and I tell people this often, don't be afraid to experiment or to try things if you're just, like, net playing or something. Like, if you're just playing online, it's like, dude, it doesn't matter. If it's just casuals, it's just casuals. Like, try to work into your play, like, you know, if you're playing against someone and it's like, oh, I see they're going for that string, then I see players of this character, you know, I see them use that block string a lot. Let me go ahead and see if I can try to IB a couple hits. Like, maybe try to IB, like, the last 2 hits in it or something. And remember, you want to try to input it slightly on the early side, because that way, even if you accidentally, you know, even if your timing is a little off, it won't really matter because you'll still just get a block. Like, it has kind of like a built-in OS if you do it too early, where it's like, well, you're already holding back, so you'll just really block it. It's fine.
Right. All right, so there you go. Magpie mirror test. Going into the replay takeover in training mode and trying to do IBs in a block string that you already had to hold, and trying to do it in a match because if you're playing Netplay, not that big of a deal. So you can just try and test it in there. Replay takeover probably the ideal version of that, I would assume, since you can kind of go for it over and over again without real consequences.
Yeah. Now, if you do want to set it up in training mode, you know, of course you can do that too. You can just go into training mode, set the opponent to the dummy, and just set it to record. Then just record into whichever slot, have it play back whichever one. That one can be, like, doing it that way can be a good way to practice different, like, IBing different routes in Gatlings. Because you could just record, like, a different Gatling route off of, like, a really common Gatling starter. Like, let's say a character does, like, a 2P. A lot of characters, like, many characters have multiple Gatling routes off their 2P. So you could just record one in the first slot, one in the second slot, one in the third slot, you know, maybe even put one in the fourth slot, and then just set it to playback random. And then just try to, I mean, you could even set it up so it plays back random, like, on wake up, like, as a reversal. Then all you'd have to do is knock the dummy down, and then as soon as they stand up, they're going to do that 2P into whichever route it randomly picks. That can be a good way that can be a little bit better than replay takeover because it lets you try out different scenarios, like different branching paths of that same situation. Maybe a little bit better than replay takeover would. But of the two, I would say replay takeover is still probably the better one, just because it's so easy. Like, you don't have to know anything about your opponent. You can just hop in and just pick a point where it's like, hey, how do I IB this string? Let me just jump into it and start trying it. You know?
Right. I had someone else ask if they're attacking, what's the best way for them to overcome someone who is really good about IBing their strings? Like, is there counterplay to someone who's, like, you know, pretty adept at using IB?
So remember, the key visual indicator, like the key tip-off, is you're going to see them flash white when they successfully do an IB. You cannot see, there is no visual indicator for if they attempt and fail at an IB. So keep that in mind as well. If you see them do a normal block, they may have just been trying to IB it and just hit it early. But generally speaking, if you see them IBing at certain points in your strings, or if you see them IBing like every hit in a string, then you want to ask yourself why. Like, are they really trying to make space to get out, or are they just trying to build meter where they can like reverse a super? At that point, it's a good question of like considering what options their character, like the opponent's character, has and which ones are strong. Like, maybe a good example would be like Robokai. Robokai has a special tension gauge, the electric gauge, and it works a bit differently from the regular tension gauge other characters have. Now, how IB translates for Robokai is it is very, very rewarding for him to do. He gets big chunks of electricity for each IB. I want to say it's like, he gets like 2/3 of a block, which he can get. He can store like 8 blocks on his electric gauge, and each successful IB is about like 2/3 of a block or something. So he only has to IB just a few hits to turn that into a lot of meter. But as far as like counterplay for IB, the best thing that I can say is be less predictable. If they're IBing you every single time, like let's say that you have a block string that you just kind of default to, and you notice that you're playing with someone and they're just IBing the last 2 hits like every time you do it, it probably is a good idea to kind of vary your block strings a little bit. Or if the cancel windows are long enough, you might even be able to vary the timing just a little bit. It might be enough to throw them off. But the best thing to do is to really just vary the actual hits that you're doing. By mixing it in with like other Gatling strings that have slightly different timing, it can make it a lot easier for them to miss time, because they'll think, oh, like a 5H is coming, and then a close slash comes out, or something, for example. And again, all you have to do to catch somebody slipping, if they're trying to IB, is tag them with something while their lever is at neutral, because they can't OS IB in that way. Like they can't block. They can't hold block and input IB. They have to let it go back to neutral sometimes.
Okay. Cool. All right. No other questions in chat at the moment, dude. So I think I can let you go. We're a bit over the time.
Oh yeah, it's no problem. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you very much having me on your stream, and I hope that everyone watching has had a good, informative time.
Dude, I appreciate you taking the time, and if anyone else wants to book a coaching session with Skeletal Minion, I do have the link to his Metafy in the description of this stream. So go down there, check it out. It's totally worth it. I mean, I just learned like an encyclopedic amount of information about defense in this game, which I 100% need. So definitely recommend doing this if you want to get better at plus R. Yeah, man.
Well, I appreciate the shout out there for the promo.
Of course.
Yeah, I do want to say I especially want to thank anyone who books a session, even if you're just considering booking a session. For the time being, I'm trying to get funds raised to go to Frosty Faustings. A few people have requested that they want to see me go. At first it looked like it wasn't going to be possible, but now because some people have been helping out with like booking Metafy sessions or contributing donations or subscribing to the stream, all of those things are helping me raise the funds that I need to go. So right now the prospect is looking very good. I am waiting on a bit of news on something from work before I can make any sort of formal announcements or anything, but I will say keep your eyes peeled on my Twitter. We should have some good news on that very soon.
Good stuff. Yes, we need Skeletal Minion at Frosty Faustings. It wouldn't be the same without you. We need the classic Skeletal Elven Grand Finals. That's required. We have to have it.
We'll see how it plays out.
Good stuff, man. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to meeting a lot of you guys too. I know there's so many new players that have only been playing like since the advent of rollback, and a lot of y'all seem really cool. So I'm kind of looking forward to just like chilling with people a little bit.
Yeah, dude.
Might
The
be kind of
late
fun.
night friendlies for sure. It has to happen.
Oh yeah.
Yep. We need the ABBA rep at Frosty. There you go.
Well,
Chat has spoken.
I guess I'm gonna. Well, I appreciate the wanting to see ABBA. I will try to rep the ABBA army as best I can. But at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and head. Again, I want to say thank you so much to KRC Pinto for having me on the stream. Thank you to any viewers who have tuned in, and I hope you all have a good night.
Good having you, man. Catch up later. Have a good one.
Later.
All right, guys. That was really informative. How do you get... Can I get out of here? Do I have to win? Uh-oh. That was cool. That was a lot of information. I wish I knew how to get out of this. I'm actually just gonna restart the game real quick because I don't want to go through like 8 rounds of that. But shouts to Skeletal. That was sick. I'm never breaking your defense down. It's over. I don't know if that's true, but I appreciate the sentiment behind it. At this point, guys, I just learned all this stuff about defense. It's time to practice it. So I'm gonna hop into Netplay. If anyone wants to play friendlies, I am completely open to doing that now. So just let me know in the chat, and we'll go from there. But until someone says yes to that, I'm just gonna play random. So we'll play ranked. You never know what you're gonna get in plus R ranked, because it'll match you against anybody, kind of. So we'll see how this goes. All right, let's work on doing some IB attempts. Will the stream be saved? Yes. Oh, Reggie's trying to play. Okay. Yeah, this stream will be saved as a video. When it ends, it'll just go into the YouTube as a video. There's also a playlist on the channel just called Streams that you can go into and find it there. But yeah, the video is always autosave for the streams. So no worries on that. If you want to review that, that was a lot of information. That was an hour-long, like, college-level lecture on plus R defensive mechanics, which you love to see. So definitely worth going and poking through that again. I will definitely going through and poking through that again, because I'm sure I did not retain every ounce of information there. Skeletal has been playing this game a long time and is obviously very knowledgeable. This is like an extra credit to the Skeletal Secret Sauce. It's a little different. I actually considered using the Secret Sauce layover for this, but he didn't have cam, so I didn't, but I did think about it. I didn't want it to be confusing. I want to get my PhD in mixology. You play ABBA, right, Reggie? I just sent you a Steam link on Discord, Reggie. Yeah, that was good stuff. I definitely mostly appreciated the IB and the slashback. Those are ones like I like know what they do. I've like read it and like done it in training mode or whatever. But it's a lot different to hear like the details of it and like kind of the strategy behind the when and the why. I feel like a dumbass not ever considering going for what am I thinking? Oh my god, my brain just broke. Going for IB just to try it. You know, versus like I always just assumed I'd get punished for trying it, which isn't a thing. It's silly. Wish I could mess with my control layout in here. I actually haven't looked at my button layout since we started playing, but whatever. Yeah, Skeletal definitely worth booking a session if you want to get better at plus R. That dude is godlike with one of the quote-unquote not good characters in the game. Abba obviously absolutely ridiculous if you let her get going, but considered a little less solid because she's difficult. What are you doing, Reggie? You're holding me up. Let's go. I'm itching. There he is. Play ranked until I get this sorted out. All right. You know what? I'll check my controllers too. Because I like to have macros for stuff. I feel like I don't have them on. Let's see. Punch, kick, slash, heavy slash, right dust, respect, right trigger. Okay, no, we want PKS. You did technically make an appearance on stream. That's true. Let's do that. Alright, we'll do a ranked. Or we'll try a ranked. I wonder how many people are playing Plus R right now that BBCF is rolling back. I wonder like if the BBCF rollback like pulled the crowd. Oh god. Okay. 300 total games versus my 60 something. It doesn't matter if I'm a defensive god, which I won't be. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, okay. I'm 6P and off rip. Because she's going to hover dash. Or maybe I'll stinger aim.
Heaven or hell. Duel. One. Let's rock.
This person can't deal with grab. Let's go.
Duel. Let's rock.
Yeah. I forgot her dives are an overhead in this one. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's fair. Air blocked the note. Can't do that. What did I try to do there? Okay. Uh-oh. Did she IK me? Wow. Fair enough. That sucks. I was right there, too. Pain. I can't believe she IB'd me. Or IK'd me. That is unfortunate. On Wake Up, too. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that.
Please select your character.
Alright, here we go. Let's do this, Reggie.
Select your character.
I like Icy London. Biking? What are you doing? Biking. Come on now. Do you know how to play Biking?
Heaven or hell. Duel. Let's rock.
Oh, I IB'd there. How do you keep getting out of my knockdown? Yeah, sure, dude. Let me send you a link real quick.
Duel. Let's rock.
Well, I guess I can't really send you a link, but, you know. If you're playing on your browser, you can follow that link. How are you getting out of being knocked down every time? What are you doing? I'm so confused. You like aren't staying on the ground. Are you just teching up off the knockdown? Can you do that? Am I stupid? I didn't think that was a thing. Maybe it's a biking thing?
Heaven or hell? Duel. One. Let's rock.
Oh my gosh, I hate that that whiffs. Okay.
Duel. Let's rock.
No, I learned how to do a cool dust combo that I can only do like near the corner. I was gonna do that. Stinger and Carcass, I'm trying to get better about like charging those. Like, so this is the kind of character specific stuff that I couldn't necessarily do with Skeletal because he doesn't play Venom. But I'm really trying to get better to add a like oh dude, we got a crew. Oh, am I watching people now? Okay, we'll spectate. Ooh, Mike Neal with the Bridget against Dion's Chip.
Heaven or hell? Duel. One. Let's rock.
Let's see what we got. So Dion's Chip, always chaotic. Bridget might be able to shut him down though. A little bit of set play there with the yo-yos. Ooh. That was sick. Good starship there. Oh, the air throw. Where's Roger? There's Roger. Been a while. Oh, got him. Mike seems to know what he's doing a little bit. Bridget's such a cool character. Ooh. What happened?
Here comes Daredevil.
What happened there? Why did their game stop? That was weird. Have on keyboard sounds like a nightmare. Yeah, it really does. Not wrong. Oh my god, Bridget's portrait is so cursed.
Heaven or hell? Duel. One. Let's rock.
Oh, this is bad. This is awful. Oop, I didn't realize Roger was out. Okay. That went poorly. Man, I thought I would get rid of that Roger. Man, I can't get past this Roger. Well played. That's tough. That is fair. I definitely want to rematch that. That's a weird one. I feel like maybe some Carcass Raid might help me there, just because it covers more airspace. I was going for a lot of Stinger aim. I'm not sure. Roger makes that really tough. Obviously, that's like the sell of the character, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Oh, come on, Roger. Ah, I tried to grab and I got a stinger. Twice. Man, he covers a lot of ground. Lordy. Oh, man. Man, I just missed my ball there. That's bad. Okay. Yikes. I want it again. That is a lot to deal with. Really don't fight Bridgets very often, so this is good. I need to learn this matchup a bit. Round start's really tricky because like I could go for a Stinger or a Carcass Raid, but it only really is gonna work if he jumps. Whereas like I think I'll lose to a yo-yo normal Think if I try like stand S. Oh, okay. Oof. Lordy.
Duel. Let's rock.
I can't tell what he's doing. He's staying airborne, so I can't like do anything on wake up, which makes sense. I mean, Venom's defense, like in terms of like move set, is not good. Staying airborne means I can't grab on wake up, so I gotta look for that. Oh my god, that portrait is so bad.
Heaven or hell. Duel. Let's rock.
Yeah, it's an overhead. The anti-air game is so good. Yeah, that's tough. Patience. This is chaos. That's hard to deal with. Alright, I put up a way better fight in that one at the least. Jeez. That character is a lot. I think I can take him. I think. I need some actual, like, wins on the Oki, though. Like, none of my Oki's panning out. Let's try it one more time. Mike, I know you're in that chat. If you've got any advice, please be my guest. I feel like I'm doing a little better of holding the defense, but I don't know. Man, the anti-airs are so good. Hmm. Yeah, fair enough. That's super unsafe. Hmm. I hate that the hit counter comes up on that. So degrading. Lordy. Oh. Yeah, I can't keep up. That's hard. That's a hard character to fight. Alright, GG's.
Please select your character.
You gotta keep those bad boys healthy, Reggie. Whew. From one character I can't see to another character I can't see. Dude, that Bridget was crazy, Mike. Good stuff. How long have you been playing the game?
Heaven or hell. Duel. One. Let's rock. Counter. Counter. Counter.
man. What? What? I hate this character so much. November last year? Nice. What? Dude. No, I don't have any advice. I don't know Bridget well enough. I do have a video that's an interview with Mahoko, though, that's a lot of really good Bridget advice, so feel free to check that out if you want to see if there's anything in there that you don't normally do. Dude, this character's so annoying. What? There we go. No. No. God damn it, Chip. God damn it. I would never do that, Reggie. I should, because it'd be funny, but I just wouldn't do it.
Heaven or hell? Duel. One. Let's rock. Counter.
There we go. Alright, man. Thanks for stopping by, Mike. I appreciate you, dude. There we go. Thank you, dude. GG's. There it is, Dion. There we go. I won't put up with your shenanigans eternally. Alright, guys. This is my last game of the night.
Heaven or hell? Duel. One. Let's rock.
What move is that? That's annoying. Ha ha! Got him that time. Let's go.
Duo. Let's rock.
No. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's on me. I got Jumpy on the grab.
Duo. Let's rock. Counter.
What? Really? Stop it. That's so dumb. Okay. Sure. Fuck Chip. No more. God. That's so frustrating. I hate this character so much. Wow. Let it expire. Oh, did you hit it? Okay. Why did they design him this way? He's so annoying. Love you, Dion. Hate your character a lot, but love you. It's alright. Reggie plays Axel in Strive, and I love him, so. This is so dumb. He just so doesn't need a command grab. It's unbelievable. So like, how does that not hit anything? Dude. Alright, I'm done. Fuck Chip. Alright, guys. Thanks for stopping by as always. Appreciate you. Probably taking next week off due to holiday stuff, but we'll be back when we're back. Thanks for rocking with me. I've been KRC Pinto. If you want to support, click join, become a member. It's the same thing as a Twitch sub. You get emotes and all that good stuff. And I will catch you guys next time.